well. But let me also speak to the disappointment in the legislature. I mean, I completely understand that. We have worked with them a lot on this project, and I understand their frustration, and I think Commissioner Wilson did a good job laying out yesterday how valuable that site is, but also our obligations on that site. So it is my goal and my determination that we'll fulfill our obligations that we have in our contract, and we expect Rivian to do the same. And we'll continue to work with the legislature in regards to that.
And do you have a message for lawmakers who might want to tighten the screws on Rivian to take back some funding? Well,
I understand that they're frustrated, but you know, a lot of the things that we're doing are tied to the site. So interchanges, road projects. Obviously, we've already done the grading, so that's bringing value to that site. That site's a lot more valuable today than it was a year ago. So we'll continue to work with them, make sure they're educated on that issue. And, you know, I understand they're frustrated, but also, you know, we don't want to send any signals either that says, hey, Georgia's going to renege on our commitments, whether it's to Rivian or any other companies that we're working with now that are coming to our state. I think that would be bad for our business environment. And I think when, you know, when cooler heads prevail, they'll understand that too, even though this stings a bit.
Governor, did Rivian call you, and what was that conversation like?
Yeah, I talked to RJ, you know, just really I think it was a couple of days before the announcement came out. I mean, they have to be careful, as the commissioner said yesterday, about sharing that information being a public company. And it was disappointing. But I understand the business case that they made by doing what they're doing. I don't necessarily like that, but I understand it.
It's primary day, consequential start of what could be a really defining year. Georgia could certainly play a huge role in this.
You think? Hey, look, get out and vote. Let your voice be heard. I mean, I think at this point, you know, we thought we might. I know when Secretary Raffensperger picked this day, I know he thought we might be the determining state. It ends up we're kind of an afterthought at this point. But regardless, there's other things on the ballot, and people can send a message with their vote today. But the real action is going to be happening here in November, and I know we're preparing for that and looking forward to it. It's going to be a crazy election season for sure.
And who are you supporting, Governor?
Well, I've said I'm going to support the nominee. You know, I voted Friday in the Republican presidential preference primary, and I've said for a long time now I'd support the nominee.
And why support Donald Trump, given your long, braided history?
Well, I think he'd be better than Joe Biden. It's as simple as that.
You said you'd support the ultimate nominee. I'm curious, would you campaign with him? Will you formally endorse him? How much political capital will you spend beyond, you know, supporting him as you've said?
Well, look, make no mistake, as I've said for a long time now, and it doesn't really matter who our nominee is or would have been, my goal is to make sure we're keeping our legislative majorities in this building. I've been, you know, Speaker Burns knows that, the Lieutenant Governor knows that, the House and Senate leadership know that. That is paramount for us to hold our majorities here in this building, to continue this great role that we've been on with 3 record years of economic development, you know, pay raises to our teachers, our men and women in law enforcement, rural broadband, making sure that no matter somebody's zip code that they're going to have economic opportunity and prosperity in our state. And that is going to be my main goal between now and November. My belief is if we do that well as Republicans and tell people what we're for, stay focused on the future, we'll have a great night, and that'll be all the way up and down the ticket.
All right, we'll take one last question.
Governor, you've been pretty outspoken about the border. What do you think of the President's case at the State of the Union when he was addressing his point?
Well, I would just go back and remember that the President had control of the House and the Senate from 2020 to 2022 and did nothing about the border, and we were complaining just as much then as we are now.
If the Rivian pulls out, is there a backup plan?
Well, you know, we're under contract obligations with Rivian. They have told us, and the CEO has put in an op-ed that they are committed. Their long-term plan includes this Georgia plant. They cannot make enough vehicles in Normal, Illinois to get the company where they want to be. So they are committed to Georgia, and we're committed to them. But this is one of the best mega sites in the country, one of the best in the country. And so we have a great asset in the East Atlanta mega site.
Governor,
Greg.
vouchers
On
that
Medicaid
come back
Yeah.
up this week, you were a huge forceful proponent of that last year. Are you going to play a front and center role in that this year?
Well, I already did that in my State of the State. I'll remind people, I said, there are no more next year's. We've been patiently waiting the House's work. I know they've been working on that bill. Very appreciative the Senate got a bill over the finish line last year. And so we're looking forward to seeing the House's legislation, and hopefully they can get it to the floor and get it passed and get it to where we can get into negotiations with the Senate. It's my hope that we'll get that done this year. And yes, we will be aggressively pushing for that once we know what the House's posture is going to be.
All right, thank you, everybody. Governor, the word around here is that you put the kibosh on the Medicaid expansion chatter this session. Are you open to?
Well, let me just say, there wasn't any kibosh by me on Medicaid expansion. It was never my idea to even discuss that. That was a legislative priority, mainly of the House, to put that out there and have some conversations. I have been, since I campaigned in 2018, focused on our waivers, the 1332 and the 1115 waiver, to have a limited Medicaid expansion in a conservative way where you have work requirements, job training requirements. You could even be volunteering in other things. And the Biden administration has blocked that Medicaid expansion. So I was never in favor of doing that last year or this year. So I wouldn't say that I put the kibosh on anything. But I know that when you have a plan that will take 60-something% of the people that we have on private plans through our 1332 waiver and move them to government-run health care, to me, that is not a good idea.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
All right,
Governor.
appreciate